Oh, oh, mm.
All right, good evening. It is Monday, October 9th of 2023. This is the Stoughton Plan Commission meeting. We do have a quorum and we are certified in compliance with open meeting laws. So the first item of business are minutes, and I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
A motion by Caravello and a second by Bradford. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? That motion carries. Next item would be the council representative report.
And at the September 12th council meeting, ordinance 26 and 27 of 2023 were approved, as well as resolution 136, 137, and 138. And at the September 26th council meeting, R 146 as well as R 151 through 155 were all approved at that meeting.
All right, thank you. Any questions on any of that? Hearing none. Next would be staff report.
Contained in your packet is just a standard monthly update, but there is something I wanted to highlight. We were fortunate enough to attend, as staff and the mayor and some others were able to attend the open house for the 51, the multifamily unit that was built on the corner of 51 and Greenbrier. That was last week. They tell us that they had 35 move-ins last weekend already. So I think they said they're 42% booked up or leased up at the outset. So that was encouraging. Nice presentation. It looked like a quality facility from the areas we got to see.
All right, any questions about the staff report? Hearing none, we'll move into the next item, which is the zoning ordinance amendment. We do have a need for a public hearing, but before we go into that, do we have any opening overview that we want to do, or do you want to jump right into it?
We can report out that the city attorney has worked with the zoning administrator to frame some of the materials or understand the applicant materials.
I'll try to tell you when I go on.
Hello?
Sorry.
So there's materials in your packet related to from the applicant as well as from the city attorney and zoning administrator. They'll be able to go over those materials later as well. If you wanted an introduction to that before the public hearing, that'd be fine. Otherwise, I'd recommend moving into the public hearing, Mayor.
Could I just briefly?
Sure, go ahead, Attorney Dragney.
Just a few procedural things.
Turn on your mic there.
Is that working?
Yep.
Okay. Just procedurally, you may already be aware of this, but just to make sure everyone is aware of it. The code gives us a process for people in the community to request amendments like this and lays out what the procedure is when such a request is submitted. And from the Plan Commission's point of view, you're required to hold a public hearing, which is what you're going to do tonight, and then you have 60 days after the public hearing to prepare your recommendation and forward that recommendation to the City Council with any findings that you may find to be appropriate to make in connection with that recommendation. So procedurally, public hearing tonight, and then you've got 60 days.
All right, any questions about that? Hearing none, we'll close our regular order of business and we'll open for the public hearing. And we do have 5 people signed up to speak. And then I was just going to ask if whatever order you'd like to come up in, it doesn't really matter to me if you have a coordinated effort, that's fine. You just need to push the button so the red light comes on, then we'll know the microphone is working.
There we go.
If you could just introduce yourself so we have your name on the record.
Sure. My name is Amber Cedarstrom. I'm part of the Stoughton Healthy Children and Neighborhood Alliance, and really that's what this proposed amendment is all about. Keeping ourselves, our children, our neighborhood, our town generally healthy. As new research emerges, it has become clear that the zoning ordinances are outdated and in need of refinement when it comes to in-vehicle sales and service uses. Rather than simply reacting on an ad hoc basis to each proposed new use, we encourage the Commission to take proactive steps to bring the ordinance in line with the comprehensive plan, join the growing regulatory trend of other municipalities around the country, and most importantly, protect Stoughton's environment, population, and character. In other words, we urge you to amend the zoning ordinance as proposed. That pollutants produced by vehicles during normal operations are bad for human health and the environment has been known for decades, but science continues to accumulate about the extent and the specifics of harm. In addition to producing concentrations of air and water pollutants, in-vehicle sales and service uses also exacerbate risks of vehicle-pedestrian accidents and generate noise and light pollution, all of which are, again, detrimental to human health and the environment and negatively impact property values. And details about all of this and supporting evidence can be found in the impact assessment in the packet. The zoning ordinance section in question states that it is designed to control and lessen congestion in the streets, to promote health and the general welfare, to promote adequate light and air, to encourage the protection of groundwater resources, and to preserve, protect, and promote property values. The proposed amendment strengthens the ordinance in support of these goals. Reflecting the most up-to-date science, it will help the Plan Commission make informed decisions about proposed new in-vehicle sales and service uses, giving proper weight to the known risks and dangers that they pose. The amendment also supports specific goals stated in the city's comprehensive plan, such as minimizing conflicts through thoughtful planning and implementation, protecting the city's waterways and groundwater, discouraging high traffic volumes near residential neighborhoods, and protecting and reestablishing attractive entryways into the community. The amendment refines the ordinance in light of these goals in the comprehensive plan. And finally, the proposed amendment is in line with a growing regulatory trend throughout the nation that limits or even bans new in-vehicle sales and service uses altogether. This amendment is an attempt to balance the overwhelming evidence about the negative impacts of increased traffic near residential and high pedestrian areas on the one hand, and economic and social realities on the other. For instance, that in a city without a passenger train or intercity bus line, we need gas stations for the foreseeable future. The specific distances proposed in the amendment attempt to codify that compromise, and I urge the Plan Commission to recommend its approval. Thank you.
And who would like to go next?
Hi there. My name is Marcus Cedarstrom. I live here in Stoughton. In-vehicle sales and service results in increased traffic and increased numbers of idling cars. It's literally a part of the business model for some uses, drive-throughs, for example. Traffic near places of pedestrian activity, schools, residential areas, parks, they greatly increase the risk of collisions. And with pedestrian deaths on the rise here in Wisconsin and elsewhere, and this has been a growing trend, we really think the city should take steps to mitigate rather than exacerbate those dangers. It's basic physics and common sense that putting distance between traffic and people does exactly that. In addition, cars and trucks emit dangerous pollutants. We just heard that from Amber during normal operations, but also while idling. And this is, I know that newer cars are trying to acknowledge that, and they shut off at times. However, we also know that the average car on the road is not a new car. In fact, the age of average cars is increasing as the car prices continue to increase, including in the secondary market. So we know then the fumes from gasoline are probably kind of the best known pollutant and some of the most dangerous, but we also are seeing recent research that suggests brakes, tires are shedding these dangerous particles completely unregulated that are making their way into the environment and to our bodies. the only way to reduce health and environmental impact is to discourage traffic. We know that's not always feasible, right? It's just not feasible in the world we live in Stoughton. That's fine. But it is why we're asking for these buffer zones, because proximity is important. Proximity is important when it comes to the pollution. It's important when it comes to pedestrian safety. It's important when it comes to light and noise pollution. That said, every single person is going to react to this differently, right, to the health risks. Some people might never develop any of the terrible, terrible things that can happen due to this. Others will have their lives shortened dramatically. Others will have their lives significantly impacted negatively because of these things. This is the challenge with public health, that everyone is going to respond a little bit differently. But we need to then balance the risks and rewards, and this amendment tries to do just that. The negative externalities of gas stations, of drive-throughs, other in-vehicle sales or service land uses, they're well documented and they come with a cost, right? And some of these numbers, even if some of these things are necessary, I like Culver's, all right? I mean, we need some of these places. We want some of these places. But the fact remains that the residents of Stoughton will bear these externalities, these costs. And proximity to traffic, proximity to air pollution, proximity to noise pollution increases the health and environmental risks. We're asking for 100 feet of distance between areas of concern for like drive-throughs, for example. And we're doing that because we're balancing the economic need and the health and safety needs. If you look at the decibel level of a car in traffic, it's about 85 decibels. If we put 100 feet between a person and those decibels, we get, and the noise source, we get that down to about 55. So we get in a much safer level of decibels. And we recognize the importance of these in-service use businesses, and we're not asking to ban gas stations like they're doing in Petaluma, California, Louisville, Colorado. We're not asking for moratoriums like they're doing in Lockwood, Illinois, or Memphis, Tennessee. We're not asking to ban drive-throughs like they're doing in Minneapolis and Salt Lake City, or smaller jurisdictions like Creve Missouri, Fairhaven, New Jersey. Even car-centric places like Long Beach, California, are issuing moratoriums on drive-throughs. Other places, Pittsburgh, Raleigh, Mesa, Arizona, Golden, Colorado, are also considering full-on bans or moratoriums. We're not asking for that. We're simply asking to prioritize the health and safety of our citizens. And we have an opportunity to do so with plenty of scientific research. And I'll note, this is going to sound snarky, and I don't actually mean it to sound snarky, but the response included 2 of the studies we cited, but with 60 days notice for everyone to think about this, we'd be happy to provide the other 28 peer-reviewed and the 23 non-governmental reports and the 15 associations, societies that we cite in this. The research is pretty clear. The science shows that these are risks to our people, to our citizens, and there are things we can do to mitigate them. So I recommend that everyone support this amendment and vote in favor. Thank you.
You can sit at the table if you'd like. It's easier for you.
Hello, my name is Adrienne Nino. I am the citizen who brought these provisions forth for your review today. These provisions are, as we just heard, backed by quite a bit of substantial evidence. And I brought these forth not as a policy or land use and development expert, but as someone who cares about the well-being of our community members, as well as the well-being and the future of the community itself. We all know that state law regarding conditional use permitting puts every Wisconsin community at risk for litigation, especially when a significant power imbalance is present. Even dozens of community members united in opposition to a poorly planned supersized gas station earlier this year only miraculously beat the odds. Providing the burden of proof required many of us to sacrifice appalling amounts of sleep and quality time with our families, among other things. The level of hustle and grind needed to pull that off is not sustainable, not for any community member, and not for the city. The provisions before you today were created with guidance from city staff, public health and safety experts, transportation operations and safety experts, and an environmental attorney to, one, take proactive and preventative action to protect our land and community from bad development plans, even when state law makes it challenging to do so. 2, ensure the city is meeting the objectives set in the comprehensive plan. And 3, advocate for development that makes our city a unique, sustainable, and undeniably excellent place to live, right now and for generations to come. These provisions are specific and clear, they're fair and reasonable. They are designed to guide gas stations and drive-thrus to locations in which they will cause the least amount of harm. No benefit can come from downplaying the proven and potential harms of these land use types. You'll find a lot of this in the impact assessment included in the packet, but just 10 gallons of gasoline can contaminate 12 million gallons of groundwater. It travels horizontally through the soil, on surfaces like asphalt, through wetlands, etc. 10 gallons of gasoline, whether by a surface spill or an underground storage tank leak, can be generated by any size gas station, and I think that's important to point out. Also, the typical size of a modern gas station, especially one located in our town with a state highway running right through it, is going to probably store about 60,000 or more gallons of gasoline underground and attract about 4,000 vehicles per day. That's kind of what we're looking at in modern times. As Amber pointed out, our comprehensive plan looks to discourage high traffic volumes in residential neighborhoods, as well as prohibit incompatible land uses from locating within or next to residential neighborhoods. A lot of this is related to how, I'm going to move on. Look, if we design for cars and traffic, we're going to get cars and traffic and pollution. If we invite incompatible land uses, we jeopardize our own safety and well-being. While cities large and small across the nation are banning new gas stations and drive-thrus completely, we are merely looking to establish safety zones. We are merely looking to guide gas stations to the sites in which their adverse impacts can be minimized. So what I ask you to consider today are 500 and 100-foot safety zones, a fair and reasonable way to protect our community from harm. And I ask you to consider what is important to you: cars and traffic or walkability, cars and traffic or pedestrian safety, toxic fumes or fresh air, contaminated water or clean water. We can choose to modernize the ordinance and protect our community. We can choose to protect tiny humans with developing brains and bodies. We can choose to protect neighborhood character and safety. We can choose to protect walkability and tiny, hard-to-see pedestrians. And we can choose a better future for ourselves and for Stoughton, Wisconsin. Thank you.
I have a quick question. Can I ask a question that's like...
It's not a two-way conversation.
Okay. I'll propose it, I guess.
Comes up during the
Yeah.
deliberation that may get answered.
Sure. So I have a thing to read, but a quick question that just came to mind. Oh, sorry. My name is Ariel Gunther. I'm a resident of Stoughton. And so my question is about responses, like lawyer responses and Michael Stacy's response that was added into the packet. I'm just wondering if that's something that's done for every application to zoning changes similar to ours. Like I said, maybe it'll come up, maybe it won't, but just a question. So again, my name is Ariel. I'm also a member of the Stoughton Healthy Children and Neighborhood Alliance. We've provided the Plan Commission and the City Council with the adverse impact assessment, the document that Adrian was talking about. The document lays out the many reasons that the city should amend the zoning ordinance in order to protect the health and safety of current and future residents of Stoughton. In response to this application, the city lawyer states several times that the city planning department and the legal staff are not experts in various topics. But by not passing this amendment, you're putting the burden on the residents of Stoughton to become so-called experts, like we've had to do while creating this document in order to protect the health and safety of the residents of Stoughton. And like Adrian said, it's not sustainable. He also states that the current or possible future commercial uses should be priced into the value of that parcel when someone is looking at a home. I'm a real estate agent, and I know that the majority of buyers do not understand zoning regulations, and they're not going to understand when they're looking at a house or, you know, in the process of buying a house. If there's land nearby, they're not going to understand what that gas station with environmental hazards, health and safety, pedestrian traffic nearby, like I didn't even know. Like, I didn't understand that when I bought my house. So I know that the average buyer doesn't understand that. The city of Stoughton should take pride in protecting the health and safety of its current and future residents. I urge you to recommend the approval of this amendment with keeping that in mind.
Ahoy. I'm Tyler Denig. I live just around the corner, 409 South 4th Street. Almost forgot it. Residents of Stoughton are seeing red. It's not the hue of the flags that are waving in front of our faces. It's not the nature of the alert that we're hearing in our ears. It's actually the most identifiable color of Quick Trip. I suspect that Quick Trip and I shared similar predictions about whether its recent application for a conditional use permit would be approved. Frankly, I have very little doubt in my mind that the quasi-judicial process at hand would have operated in favor of Quick Trip. To echo Attorney Dredney's famous presentations on this topic, quasi-judicial decisions must consider only the evidence pertinent to the nature of the application. In this case, in-vehicle sales and services, gas pumps, car washes, etc. So by legal precedent, council members were not actually allowed to consider the overwhelming scientific evidence explaining the dangers of the proposed developments when making their decision. Quick Trip's CUP was really bound to be approved based on this understanding. So the hands of the city and really the hands of the Common Council were tied. So why then did Quick Trip withdraw its application, rather miraculously, I may add? Well, beyond overwhelming negative public sentiment, the successful businesses tend to operate with efficiency. So while an approved CUP was all but guaranteed, Quick Trip probably recognized that the subsequent process would be nothing but inefficient and quite a headache for them. Because really, the residents of Stoughton, as we have, would have surely worked hard to identify the step in the process that would terminate plans to develop. Because stopping the construction of a gas station directly next to a child care center really seems like a rather comically obvious decision in the 21st century. But as it stands, the obvious step in the process, if it exists at all, is way too far down the line for anyone's comfort or efficiency. Not the public's, not Quick Trip's, and certainly not this government's. But the science presented here tonight, the science in your packet, has identified a very grave vulnerability in Stoughton's public health and wellness. But the risks don't really stop there. We risk promoting a system of commerce that really prioritizes profits over the health of our kids. We risk, settling for a government process that requires that we walk an inefficient, fine line of fine print just to, make an otherwise obvious decision. So I suppose that makes tonight the obvious next step for us, the one that we've identified in the process, and that is to amend the Stoughton Code of Ordinances and prove to us and prove to the public that our health is not for sale. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's all I had signed up for the public hearing. Do you have anyone else? Oh, sure. Yep. You have up to 3 minutes in case you don't know the rules.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's okay. You can just introduce yourself.
Sorry, my name is Bob Krieger. I'm a resident of Stoughton. Apologize for not signing up in advance. I was deep in the middle of a project and I wasn't sure if I was going to get out of it to come down here. So, been a resident of Stoughton for 24 years now. Seems like it's been longer, but my wife and I have enjoyed raising 2 children in the city. And the one thing that we've always thought was admirable about the city is that, you know, you do take things that are important to the public into account in your planning. And we're talking about best value planning is what we're kind of really referring to. It's not a matter of, is it going to be better for this group or is it going to be better for that group, but it's what is the best value for the entire community at whole. And taking into account health and safety of the residents should be at top priority when we think about best value in the planning for the city. And so I support this amendment to the zoning ordinance wholeheartedly. I think it does actually speak volumes in what is best value for our residents. And it also shows that we are taking and putting our best foot forward and showing that for people that are coming into the community, that there's a high value put on health and safety and residents first. And I think that just is going to, you know, be the thing that brings people in. It's, you know, we're really, I think in general, nobody really cares if there's another Quick Trip on the east side of town or whatever. But I think we're all looking at it from the standpoint, if it's a safe and healthy place to live, that is the best value for all of its residents, you know, in a whole. So, thank you.
All right, anybody else? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and then we'll reopen for our business. So, let me pull up what do we have here. Are there any questions from commissioners at this point? Commissioner Farrell.
Mayor, I just had one. Looking at the existing ordinance, push your button, section 78. Section 78, TAC 206, 4G, the last sentence talks about if it's performed in conjunction with a principal land use, the in-vehicle sales and service shall be considered an accessory use. So does that include or exclude the in-vehicle sales if it's an accessory use? Just to be clear. Are you
Michael, you want to take that one?
following me?
I think so, but let me make sure.
The last sentence, it's on your first page, well, no, page 2 of the PDF, I'm sorry.
This is the existing ordinance.
The sentence begins, if performed in conjunction with a principal land use. And it says those in-vehicle sales and services shall be considered an accessory use. So my question is, does that include or exclude those services?
Right before regulations.
Yeah.
Which one?
Right before regulations. Paragraph before regulations.
Okay.
See, page,
There we go.
page 2, yeah, there you go, right there. It's the last sentence in, well, the first paragraph of that page, really.
I think the question as I understand it, I mean, I'm not sure why it's saying that there. I think it's not recognizing that in-vehicle sales and service could be either the principal use on the property, or it could be an accessory use. I think the question is, in either case, it still requires a conditional use approval. So,
Okay. So it includes them, it doesn't exclude them.
well,
what you're saying.
What I'm saying is, it's possible that in vehicles, I can't think of a case in which it's not an accessory use.
Right, I think
I mean,
they
it's
are
almost
accessory.
always an accessory use. There's almost always another use occurring on the parcel that is the principal use, such as, let's say you've got a bank with a drive-through. Well, the bank building itself and what's happening there is the principal use.
Right.
The drive-through is accessory to that.
Right.
So it's almost, I mean, I can't really think of a case where the in-vehicle sales and service would be the principal use.
And I think when you look it up in the zoning code under accessory use, it actually points to the regulations in the principal use. So it actually points to the principal use anyway.
Okay.
Even as an accessory
So
use. So
I think somebody put that in, I don't know why, I mean, it's not really all that helpful to have that language there. I mean, it's still
it's all part of the use.
in-vehicle sales and service. That's still the nature of what we're talking about, and it's still regulated, or it's still allowed only as with conditional use approval, whether it's the principal use on the parcel or whether it's accessory to a principal use. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah, so you're saying it includes, so a bank with an ATM drive-up would be considered underneath of this ordinance?
So if somebody wanted a bank with
Right.
no drive-up, they wouldn't need to come and get your approval for the drive-up. But if they
Right.
want a bank with a drive-up, now that drive-up is an accessory use that's regulated as an in-vehicle sales or service use
Okay.
and requires conditional use approval.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify. Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments at this point?
Could I just respond to a couple things that came up during the public
Sure.
hearing? Ms. Gunther asked whether the staff memo that was prepared in this case is prepared in all cases where there's an ordinance proposed. This is the only time that I can remember since I've been the city attorney, where we've had a group of residents who proposed legislation under this ordinance, under this provision of the code. And this provision of the code specifically requires the zoning administrator to provide a memo that reviews and evaluates any written justification included by the applicant. So this is the first and only time that I recall that type of process being used where we've had to do that kind of memo. Certainly there are memos prepared by staff in connection with other ordinances at other times, but this is the only situation where I can remember where the ordinance specifically requires that staff do that kind of memo. That was one item. And then Tyler, I just wanted to clarify, because Tyler made reference to what his understanding was of what I said previously with respect to conditional use proceedings. And yes, they are quasi-judicial proceedings. But I think Tyler said that I had said that the city couldn't consider scientific evidence in connection with an application. That's not correct. You can, as long as, the person who's providing the information is providing what the statute refers to as substantial evidence. It has to be evidence that a reasonable person would rely on in support of a conclusion. You're not allowed to consider simply someone's personal opinion as to what the right policy result should be. So you do have to have substantial evidence, and I do acknowledge that conditional use proceedings and the kind of evidence that's necessary is a challenge for everyone, for the applicant, for the community, for you all, for staff. So it's not easy. I'm not suggesting that it is. But I just want to make it clear that, yeah, you can consider scientific evidence if it's presented to you, and it's presented in a way that a reasonable person could rely on. That's it.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, we do have a recommendation from the city attorney to review our ordinances, especially those that relate to the conditional use permit. He's made that recommendation to this body more than once. Our plan is we do have money in our capital improvement project budget to update our comprehensive plan, and then follow that with an update of our zoning ordinances. Those things take a lot of time and money to complete, but those things are definitely on our radar to do. We have the money allocated, I believe, for 2025 to do the zoning code, the comp plan, and then we would follow that up as soon as it's completed with the zoning code. So the question is, what do we do between now and then? We've been taking these conditional use permits kind of one at a time as they come through and have each one kind of stand on their own based on the evidence. So far, we've, been able to get through some processes. We're not the only ones that struggle with that issue. Even some of our close neighbors have had some pretty contentious conversations about conditional use permits as well. Anything from the commissioners?
Mayor, were the proposed new language in there, was that drafted by the city planners, or was that by the group representing? Entirely by them? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I don't have a question, I just have a comment that I just want to say that I appreciate all the research and considerable amount of time that the folks that spoke tonight and presented this information put into presenting this information. It's a lot of stuff and a lot of work.
Yeah, and I would definitely echo that. I have to say that, having said that, I do have some concerns about some of the supporting documents that are in the packet, and I'll try to give a few examples. But I saw a lot of disclaimers in there. Things that said that things like consistent and compelling scientific evidence suggests. To me, that's inconclusive when I see the word suggest. I saw another one that says, health consequences of nearby residents at gas stations have not been studied. So that would tell me that additional work would need to be done in order to come to conclusion. Some of the examples that were in there, one of them was about a daycare next to a gas station that had experienced a leak 15 years ago. The DNR had them evacuated. To this day, that daycare and that gas station still operate next to each other, which would suggest to me at least those folks aren't concerned about it. Now, that doesn't mean we shouldn't be, but other things talk about infiltration in the concretes have not been sufficiently studied. There were several articles that I found to be non-relevant. To the information that was provided, it had to do with more vehicles maybe that involved diesel or coal or things like that. So I do have some concerns about some of the supporting documents, and I'm not going to sit here and spend all night going through them, other than to say that I have concerns about us being the one municipality in Wisconsin that is given the task to try to single-handedly solve a problem that may or may not actually exist. And I know that might not be popular with the applicants, but it seems to me that if we're going to have an effort like this, it needs to be more than just Stoughton, Wisconsin. It needs to be a county or a statewide conversation. It feels to me like this is over-regulation, and it's a reach. To be honest, I'm not saying that there isn't some merit to it, but I just don't think that the studies are conclusive. If it were, I think that the DNR, the EPA would be all over it. I think there would be class action lawsuits and everything else, and I haven't seen any of that. So I spent a lot of time going through it. There's 70-some attachments. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to do that, but if you haven't, I would encourage you to do that before you get to your decision-making process and having, once you go through them, you may, think that I'm full of something, but, everybody has an opinion, and I just wanted to share mine.
I just, it's more of an observation more than anything. First blush of reading the initial document, I came across my mind, I was thinking, you could say the same thing for a lot of what they're asking here for any given parking lot. Safety-wise, they talk about, pedestrian fatalities, and they talk about the air pollution and such. So first thing that came across my mind was, well, heck, shouldn't then parking lots be at least 100 feet from the buildings? Especially if you're talking about daycares and or other facilities. And I'm just looking down the road at our ordinances for parking lots in general then. And thinking, according to this, we should have nothing closer to 100 feet to a building.
Commissioner Farrell?
I don't know. The way I read the existing regulation, I don't think it begins to touch parking lots. It talks about
It's just an observation of how I feel.
Pardon?
It's just an observation of how I'm feeling.
Okay.
How this is presented.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm just carrying logic to a spot where you could put this for any vehicle parking facility.
Alderperson Schumacher.
All right, like the mayor, I did bother to go through all of the attachments and all the related documents that are in there. I'm going to qualify this straight up as I'm not going to debate the health risks involved with BTX chemicals. That's well established. As this is presented, I also found most of the supporting documents that were in there to be lackluster at best. And I would invite you that you can freely contact me however you wish with all the remaining documents in there that support this, because most of these articles that are in here are either outdated or they don't necessarily follow a very sound scientific method. We'll also qualify this that I'm a molecular biologist by profession. I'm a 30-year bench scientist. I'm specific in handling biological, chemical, and radiological hazardous materials. So I've got an enormous amount of knowledge about these sorts of things. So I would, as the resolution stands, I'd not be able to support the specific language in there. But I'm welcome to and open to seeing your remaining supporting documents.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Commissioner Bradford.
I've got a red light on. Can you hear me? Okay. First, I'd like to say that I appreciate your passion. I've been a volunteer on these kind of issues in my past life, especially as a parent. And I know that it does take putting your heart and soul and a lot of hours into it. So I get when two of you said it's just not sustainable, that it does take a lot out of your family time and your personal time. So I want you to know that I do appreciate that. And I do think that citizen action sometimes, if it doesn't result in maybe the approval of what you've brought to us, that it certainly raises awareness of issues going forward. and that maybe we need to be looking at some things in a different way, different light, moving forward, with the information, the hard information that you've brought about concern for your families. But I also looked at some of this documentation, and I think I agree with the mayor and Brett that it doesn't rise to the standard. That doesn't mean that we won't still take a deep look at the issue that you've brought forward.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? Commissioner Farrell?
I raised these questions when this first came up of the city attorney about the fact that aside from maybe one of us or two that we may not be experts. My background's in civil engineering, not chemistry, but I asked the question about, since we're not experts necessarily, how do we pretend to evaluate the substantial evidence? And the answer was, it has to be substantial evidence as determined by a reasonable person, which I know is a term of art in the law. So I think we need to kind of just remember that, I believe, and you correct me if I'm wrong, please, we're not trying to play scientist here. We're looking at this from the viewpoint, from the perspective of a reasonable person. Is that correct?
Well, I used that reference to the substantial evidence requirement, and the reasonable person language that I used was in reference to what you need to do when you're evaluating a conditional use permit application. You're not doing that tonight. Tonight you're looking at proposed legislation, and in the context of proposed legislation, you are not constrained by that standard. In fact, you have much broader discretion to consider whatever information you find helpful in making that decision. It's that tonight you're not in that substantial evidence environment. You're a policymaker now. Now, as a policymaker, you're being presented with a proposed piece of legislation. One of the reasons that's being offered to support it has to do with, as I understand it, the potential adverse health impacts of this type of use when in proximity to other uses. That's a pretty complicated subject to get into, so you'll have to decide whether you have the kind of information you need to figure out how to resolve that policy question. I'm not sure if that helps a whole lot, but you're not making a quasi-judicial decision that could be challenged on the basis that you didn't have the right kind of evidence. Does that help at all?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Go ahead.
One more question. I think this was in the response provided by either Michael or you wrote that one? Rodney wrote that one. So a question related to the 24 existing businesses that were identified within there as would be affected by the change in the language. Was that based on the 500-foot recommendation or on a 100-foot? I know that there's kind of splitting hairs in there as far as which ones would be affected by the 100 and which ones would be by the 500.
I think it splits it up, if I recall. There's a number for all of them, and then I think there's only like 7 that are actually gas stations in town.
Got
Because
it.
one just closed.
Okay, thank you. And I do encourage the group, please contact me. I'm definitely willing to sit and meet with you.
Can we make any responses now?
That wouldn't really be appropriate at the meeting. It'd be best to send a response by email. Certainly, if you wanted to email all of us, you could do that. That would be helpful.
Is there typically a time for like the plan commission
So that'll be up to the Plan Commission to decide how it wants to proceed. I mean, the only thing that's legally required is the public hearing that you've had. And you have 60 days now to make whatever decision you think is appropriate. You have the discretion as a group to decide, do you want more information? If so, what kind of information? How do you want to get it? Do you want to engage in some kind of process in the next 60 days? And if so, what does that look like? That's a decision that you have the authority to make as a group.
Yeah, and the only thing I would caution is if you want to send the information, we can distribute it, but it gets a little sticky if we all start responding.
Yeah, I would not want to see like emails to all the members of the Plan Commission members responding back and forth, because now we get into a very complicated, difficult situation, both under the open meetings law and just for purposes of you managing the conversation. So I think the issue for you all is, do you want to make a decision tonight? Do you not want to make a decision tonight? If you make a decision tonight, well, then you're done. Your decision will move on to the City Council. If you don't make a decision tonight, then what? When do you want this back on the agenda? Do you want any other kind of process? Do you want to create an opportunity for conversation with people who want to come and talk to you? That's up to you all to decide how you want to handle that.
Is there a way yet this evening that we can waive rules, or is there a mechanism that we can have, since we are all still here live, and if someone has a further information they would like to present based on our discussion, is there a way that we can make that happen tonight, regardless, I mean, before we move into the decision-making process of where we want to go with this in the future or within the next 60 days?
I think that's up to you. Your
Yeah,
agenda would
I think you could ultimately waive the rules. What I'm hearing is we have up to 60 days to make a recommendation to the City Council. I'm also hearing that there's additional information the applicants may want to provide. So I just don't know how productive it'll be if we get into a conversation tonight and how late it'll get. Some of the questions may get answered as they provide additional information to us, but ultimately, yeah, you could, I guess, vote to waive the rules. I think you have the ability to do so.
I think I'd like to waive the rules. I don't know if we can put, another 3-minute situation on things as we do at the public comment period. I suppose we can do whatever we want, I guess.
Well, the question is, what do you want to do? And then we can determine whether that can be accomplished within the agenda that you have for the meeting.
I think if the applicant is prepared to offer follow-up information that might be pertinent at this time, if they are interested in doing that, I would be prepared to say I would like to waive the rules and allow that to be able to happen.
Would you like to reopen the public hearing?
Yes.
I think because the public hearing has already been closed, I think if you want to have another public hearing, it'd be better to schedule that at your next meeting.
Okay.
Now, if you just want to have some other kind of conversation that is not then part of the public hearing, could you do that? Maybe, but it's not part of the public hearing record then. So I think if there's an interest in allowing additional public hearing testimony and information, because the public hearing was open and closed, and what I don't know is there anyone who was watching this who might have thought, oh, public hearing's over, I'm signing off now, I don't need to listen anymore. That's why I think if they're going to have more public testimony, I think it'd be better to do that at your next meeting. The other thing that I will say is, this came up during the meeting about question and answers. We typically don't allow people who are testifying to question members of the Plan Commission, But members of the Plan Commission have the ability, I think, in a public hearing, to ask questions of the witness, of the person who's testifying, if they have them. So if you had another public hearing and you wanted to ask a question of someone to follow up because they're here providing information and you have a question for them, I think you can do that. What we don't allow for is for the witnesses to question members of the commission.
Matt, are we violating public meeting laws because we've officially closed this public hearing? And now we need to have a 24-hour notice to open another public hearing?
That's my concern, because you open...
Because that's what it sounds like.
That's my concern about reopening the public hearing tonight, because, or having another public hearing tonight, because it was opened, it happened, then it was closed, then we moved on to discussion. To now go back and reopen the public hearing, I think could be a problem, because the agenda is structured such that, you know, people might have already signed off and thought, oh, I've already heard everything there is to hear on that.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds to me, and if you have a question or comment, you can chime in.
Yeah, I just have a question. So we've been given this ordinance. I think there are some things of value that could be looked at, but I think the ordinance as a whole is a bridge too far. Thinking about its impact on the city as a whole, do we have to just say yay, nay on this? Can we go back as a body with a proposal? Can they come back with a different proposal? How can that work? To have some negotiation going so that it's not all just yay or nay.
All right, I'll do the best I can on this. It gets a little complicated. Because our ordinance gives us a specific process relating to the specific proposal, I think you will have to make a recommendation within the time period specified in the ordinance on this particular application. I think that could be, recommendation could be yay, it could be nay, or it could even be you recommend that some variation be approved, okay? I think that's all within your authority. And I think you also have the authority as a plan commission, if you, let's say you get past this process and nothing happens, I think you still have the authority as a plan commission to say, you know, we want to schedule some future time to reopen this question or a question like it and go through another process to study the issue. You could say to the city council, we'd like you to appropriate money in next year's budget to hire a air quality scientist to help. You know, you could do all kinds of stuff like that, but that's up to you all. And if you want money from the city council, then you got to ask them.
So I think for tonight, we're looking for either a motion to approve, a motion to deny, or a motion to bring it back at the next meeting. So it'd be basically a motion to postpone it. I think that's what I'm hearing is the options.
That sounds right to me.
Okay, I'll make a motion to postpone.
And do you want to schedule, do you want another public hearing opportunity at the next meeting? That would be the other important thing to know.
Or do we want to just discuss it as a group? I think I'd prefer for us to discuss it as a group, and then we could always go back again to the community.
You have 60 days, so could we get 2 meetings in 60 days?
Because it was presented on August or whatever.
Nobody seconded, so maybe it's...
Well, and if not, we could schedule a special meeting just for this issue too, so we have more time to work on it. So that's another option.
I'm open for a solution.
Not on irregular nights, you can't. 60 days is prior to your next regular meeting of December, well, before your December 11th, 60 days would be like December 7th or 8th. So you wouldn't be able to accomplish it on, I'm sorry. So you couldn't accomplish your 60-day requirement within your second plan commission regular scheduled night.
So we could have one in November If we wanted to do another one, we'd have to have a special meeting between November and whatever the date is before December.
All right. So what's your motion? Did you made a motion to postpone, but I didn't hear public hearing at the next meeting. So it's kind of, what I'm hearing is a motion to table the discussion on what the recommendation should be until your next regular meeting. But that does not allow for a public hearing, that doesn't call for a public hearing to be scheduled at that time, if that's the only thing in the motion.
Do you want a public hearing at the next meeting as well?
I'm going to say this, I think we have to have time to go over this and see how it's going to impact the entire city as a group.
Okay.
And that's probably not politically correct, but I really think that's what it's going to take for everybody to speak their mind here and fight for whatever they want to fight for.
Okay.
So I hope the audience does not.
And we could decide at that next meeting to schedule another public hearing.
Yes.
But it would just have to be within that 60-day window, and we'd have to make a decision that night. So,
I'll just say one more thing. I mean, Alder Schumacher invited people to send him materials. Of course, people can do that. They could also send materials to Michael, and he could disseminate them to everyone.
I'd prefer that route for
Yeah.
transparency, please.
So if anyone wants to submit more information, probably the best thing to do is submit it to Michael, and then he can share it out to the whole plan commission, and it can, but that's not a public hearing, but it's more stuff that you guys will have to read, because you don't have enough yet.
I would also, if it's possible to do this, I would say that I would like to support Commissioner Bradford's motion with the addition of adding a public hearing. Is that possible to do?
that's not what was included in her
Okay.
motion. So, we'll have to see, is there a
But you would
second?
have a second, yeah.
Is there a second to the motion as it was stated?
I'll second the motion as stated.
Second by Schumacher. All right, any discussion on the motion? You could offer an amendment if you wanted to.
Well, if I can offer an amendment now, at this point, that includes a public hearing,
So you're gonna start with the amendment.
All right,
I would make that amendment.
all right. Is there a second to the amendment? Not here in a second. So it takes us back to the original motion, which was to have this on the agenda at the next Plan Commission meeting. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed?
No.
Opposed. Two opposed. That motion does carry, so it'll be on at the next meeting. Thank you all for being here tonight on that issue. If you want to stay, you're welcome to stay. If you want to leave, I totally understand.
I wanna leave. You don't need me though, right?
You're the only one getting paid.
You're not allowed.
Okay, all right. Till the next meeting.
Okay, next item is conditional use request for a bed and breakfast at 217 to 219 South 4th Street. That one also has the ability to have a public hearing. And before we go into that, is there anything we need to cover, Rodney?
No, it's actually very close to the downtown business district, or, well, it's essentially part of the central business district. It's one block or half a block off of Main Street on South 4th Street.
All right, and I believe the applicant is online if there's any questions for Ashley. Anything before we go into a public hearing? Commissioner Farrell.
Just one clarification. I know there's a very small public parking lot right in front of this facility, and this is another one of those where the parking is not a requirement, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
On-site parking is not a requirement in this district.
All right, any other questions? Hearing none, we'll close the regular meeting and open it up for the public hearing. And I did have a couple people signed up to speak. The first one is Lisa, and I believe, Lisa, were you on? You on Zoom?
I'm on Zoom. Can you
Okay.
hear me?
We can, so you have up to 3 minutes, and go ahead.
Yeah, I basically just wanted to sign in and express my support of the approval of this. I feel like I own the building at 205 South 4th Street, which is a 4-unit, which is closest to Ashley's building there. And I just feel like I can't think of anything that would be a problem with it, and I really feel like it would be a nice addition for her to get some extra funds. I know she wants to continue to fix up her building, and I think that it's a very appropriate use of that building. It's really only a parking lot between her and Main Street, and then our building is a 4-unit, so I just feel like it would be a very low impact and appropriate use for her building. And I just wanted to sign in and vote my support as a neighboring building owner.
All right, thank you. And then I also had Mike signed up. Is he there as well?
Yep, I'm here. I am Lisa's husband, and I also support Ashley with her request. I see Ashley all the time working on her property, doing some wonderful landscaping and constantly working to improve her property. So because she is always working so hard on her property to make it better, I think this would be a good addition to the business district in Stoughton, especially because there are neighboring places such as the Stoughton Opera House that customers there or people visiting there might benefit from the use of Ashley's place. So I think this is a very positive thing, and I would ask the Planning Commission to support her request.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wish to speak at the public hearing? If not, we'll close the public hearing, and then we'll reopen for our business. Anything from staff on this one?
There was nothing that we revealed that was noteworthy.
All right, any questions or comments from the commissioners? If not, I'll entertain.
Mayor, is there an existing business in this, on the lower floor already, or?
There is. Ashley, do you want to describe your business that's currently there?
Yeah, so currently I do have a resale store, and I have gotten a lot of feedback from customers and people that pass through Stoughton that it would be a great facility to be able to stay at, like Mike stated, through the Opera House, just people passing through. And to be honest, I am a full-time student going for my master's in psychology. I have a 5-year-old, and I do work full-time through Exact Sciences, so running the store is not, it's more of a hobby that's turned into just stuff sitting there. So I'm looking to give something more back to Stoughton, and to just people passing through, customers, and this great old house. So I think it would be a great addition to the downtown area.
All right.
All right, well, just for clarity then, both businesses will operate simultaneously on that floor, is that right?
No, so what's gonna happen is that I am phasing out the store, and the store is going to go to online. If I do happen to have instances where I don't have somebody staying there, when you walk into the store, you can go to the right or to the left. I would have it just where you can enter to the right so that you may be able to shop, but I'm gonna try to get everything where it's just online.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
All right, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion for the resolution.
I make that motion that the council accept the application.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Who wants it? All right, second by Bradford. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, Ashley. We'll see you at City Council 2 weeks from tomorrow.
Awesome. Thank you so much, you guys. Have a
Yep.
good evening.
Have a good night. All right, next item is conditional use for personal and professional services use tattoo parlor at 529 East Main Street. This one here also has a public hearing component. Anything we need to cover before we go into it?
Since Commissioner Farrell mentioned parking, this one does have a different issue related to it. It's not part of the central business district, so on-site parking is required. You'll note one of the staff review comments and conditions would be related to them entering into an agreement with the adjacent property owner to utilize some of their parking area to meet their parking requirements for this use. So that is one of the conditions that's outlined in the resolution.
All right, any questions before we go into the public hearing? Hearing none, close the regular meeting, open the public hearing. I did not have anyone signed up for this one. Is there anyone that would wish to speak to it? Come on up. If you could just give us your name and address for the record, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Gabrielle Ballard. I am the co-owner of potentially Valkyrie Art Collective. We are applying for the conditional use permit at 529 East Main Street, which is the old train depot. That building has been in disuse for quite a while. It was a wood shop for over 40 years to my knowledge. The Webbers own the property right now. So basically what we've done over the last month and a half is completely renovate down there. And I invite all of you guys to come out and see it. And we did get a building permit for that as well. But I promise we did, which is why we're here right now. Yeah. So basically I live in Orfordville, but I have been tattooed in Stoughton before actually. And my business partner, Ashley Severson, and I have been tattooing for over 6 years individually in Janesville, Wisconsin. And a lot of our clientele is in the Madison area, and we were looking for somewhere that had a really strong artist community, and we really found that in Stoughton, and how much you guys support your citizens and the walkability, and you put a lot of effort into making sure that your downtown is just, it's immaculate coming from Janesville, essentially. And we really like how pleasant everybody is in the community, and we really wanted to put a focus on making sure that we are honoring the train depot and keeping everything to a high standard as everybody else does in Stoughton. We are proposing a private studio, so there would be only 2 of us there, Ashley and I, and then we would probably only have 2 clients per art, or 1 client per artist. So we did get an agreement from the event space that is next door. They are tenants there, however. So we do need to get into contact with Stoughton Trailers. So we are currently in the process of doing that. We did get approval from the tenant next door to use 4 parking stalls. And we did also make sure that, because I believe it's 1,175 square feet. So we would need about 4 parking stalls. There is also public parking that is within like 100 feet, but we understand that it is not a part of our conditional use permit to be allowed to use those. So, but we are very interested in getting involved in the community. We've already introduced ourselves to Greg, who's at the youth center. He's actually taken some of the woodworking stuff, but we've just been really lucky to be here, and we hope that you guys can consider us, and we really hope to make this our new home and our new little art space. So.
All right, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, anybody else for the public hearing? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing, and then we'll reopen. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners?
I got one, Mayor.
Go ahead.
So this is in the front half of the building, not in the green colored building, is that correct? Okay. I would just say make sure that you time the train arrivals carefully so that
We're planning those to be break times. Luckily, we've actually been there, and, you know, I'm listening to all these parents, but may I speak back? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's
Just wanna make sure I can respond. Okay. I'm also a parent. I just had a 7, well, he's 8 months as of yesterday. So we've been spending every weekend, like my son has been there with me almost every single weekend in his bouncer while we're trying to get all of this stuff ready. And it's been like a really big effort from our family and from ourselves to do the drywall ourselves and do the flooring ourselves. So we've been there quite frequently to be able to hear the train go by, and we've been using it as our break time. So.
I imagine the little one has giant eyes as soon as it comes by.
He loves it, and he loves watching the cars on Main Street also. There's a nice big window there.
All right, any other questions from commissioners? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion. Oh, go ahead.
Actually I'm recalling something about I just have a question about the parking, because I'm recalling something from the open book about parking at this location, and I'm trying to recall exactly whether I think there was a question at open book about whether there was parking included with this location, with this building, or something that had to do with right-of-way from the railroad,
Yeah,
or?
I think they had to get, a property line designation from the rail authority, is that right?
Sounds very likely. While not specifically involved with the open book process, we need documentation that would show they have the on-site parking requirements met. If that's available and that can be met on-site without an agreement, great. If not, we're going to need to have an agreement with the adjacent property owner to allow for that use of 4 stalls.
If property owner, I guess it's the Webbers are the folks that actually are the property owners, if they do the footwork to figure out that might be what I'm recalling, is that I don't think they knew where to start to determine who to contact or who to talk to figure out whether they actually had parking, since they weren't clear on it.
I don't think we can provide them clear direction, but if they can provide legal documentation that supports their actual, that the land actually is accommodating parking on their site, we'd review it and acknowledge it as such.
So I don't know if we can make the applicant aware that their landlord might be.
I think you just have.
Yeah.
We're aware that there's a situation going on where Stoughton Trailers is making a claim to all of the parking stalls and the whole parking lot. So we're just trying to work with Stoughton Trailers instead of getting into the parking disagreement between the library and the Webbers, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So, and that's covered in the condition?
Yeah, I think it's one of the conditions on the resolution on the second page.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion. Motion by Bradford.
I'll second.
Second by Caravello. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? None opposed. That motion carries.
So that'll go to council.
Yep. So it'll be at City Council 2 weeks from tomorrow. Hopefully by then you'll make contact with Stoughton Trailers.
We just have to figure out who to make contact with.
Okay.
It's such a large company, so
Yeah,
hopefully we can get that.
I might be able to get you a couple names if you want to reach out to me tomorrow.
That would be fantastic.
Okay.
Great.
Yep, there might even be one zooming in right now that is listening to you. All right. Item number 10 is the site plan review for a multifamily residential project at 2605 Cromwell Court. You might recall that we've gone through multiple processes, including the approval of the 96 units behind the True by Hilton Hotel. And they're here tonight for a site plan review. And remember, site plans only have to be approved by this body. They don't go to City Council. And Connor's here from Forward Development Group. If you have anything for him, anything we need to cover, Rodney, you want to share?
I think it'd be worth having the applicant give just an overview of the project. Certainly, it's been introduced in previous meetings, but having him give an overview and highlight some of the items.
Yeah. Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Connor. Did I just turn it off?
Yep.
Now it's on.
Yeah, it was still on.
Red is bad. No. Connor Net with Forward Development Group. I'm glad to be here again to present the site plan for 2605 Cromwell Court and our conventional zoning MR24. The site plan, because we went through a conditional use permit with the rezoning application, did include a concept plan when it was reviewed at the August 14th Plan Commission meeting, as well as the August 22nd and September 12th City Council meeting. So the concept plan that was reviewed is very similar to the site plan that is in your packets. We wanted to make it clear that we valued City Council's feedback in particular because we knew it wouldn't go back to them. So we requested them to provide us feedback on the site plan, and we've addressed their comments. Two of them being, one, the emphasis on native plantings, which we've done, in particular using native plantings as a screening on the east property line in the existing swale in that location. So rather than it just being lawn, it'll be a native planting area which provides biohabitat as well as better infiltration within the swale. And as I mentioned, it'll also help with screening to the adjacent properties. The site plan it's not up, but item number 3 on the site plan was a sidewalk connection to the commercial district. So that is a sidewalk that will allow residents to walk through the site to the south property line and connect directly with a sidewalk that is through the True by Hilton hotel site. So we're kind of turning that into a quasi-public sidewalk through the True site, which will allow residents to walk from the property site to the commercial center within a quarter mile, which will give access to grocery and other services. Some other items to highlight that weren't requested by council, but we're happy to include, or excited to include. Additional landscape screening. So we went above the city requirement for planting requirements to help screen to adjacent properties, provide a little bit of privacy between all the different land uses. Also, there's no longer, compared to the plan that was presented a month ago, the entry drive where you see the little red trees, there are no longer parking stalls along that. So we clearly are delineating parking for the site and the cul-de-sac use. So if you're not intending to go to the site, you have the cul-de-sac to turn around, but we're not parking that entry drive, so it's a little bit cleaner entry. And then the last thing is there is an amenity zone for residents, including a picnic zone and a fire table that'd be like gas powered and on a timer. But the sidewalks around the site are also looped, allowing residents to kind of walk internally as well as connect south to the commercial center and to the trails and sidewalk throughout the Kettle Park West neighborhood. So with that, we're excited to continue to work on the project. We're eager to hopefully break ground this fall, so that's something that we're still hopeful for. And one other thing that came up, I was going to mention that housing, the need for housing, and I think the comment that Rodney made about 51 West is, I almost fell off my chair, 42% pre-leased before your opening weekend for multifamily is incredible. So that just shows that there's a need for it. I can say that there's a need, there's data that there's a need, but to hear that was good. So there's a need for it, and we're excited to help that need. So if there's any questions, let me know if I can be of assistance.
All right, thank you. I noticed Dr. Keyser perked up when he heard that as well. Our school superintendent is here, so. Any questions or comments right out of the gate from commissioners?
Connor, I just want to say it's been a long road, but I like the product that we ended up with. I mean, you know, there's always improvement to anything, but I think with where we started and now this proposal, well done.
Thank you. I feel like I know you all better. I spent half my summer here.
We don't know if that's a good thing
Yeah,
or
no,
not, right?
it's good.
Anybody else have any questions or comments on the site plan?
I mean, I do like the plantings and that you've chosen in there. Thanks for not putting a lot of garbage trees in there, putting some quality trees in there.
I was just going to highlight for the commissioners a reminder that as part of the rezoning, there was a condition that the parkland dedication aspect of it be worked out, so that still is in process and still remains a condition. Prior to issuance of a permit, there would have to be an agreement with the city council as to how that land would be dedicated.
I have one comment. I'm looking at Exhibit B, and I'm looking at the sidewalk that flows out into the True Hilton parking lot. That's where the number 4 is. Do you see it?
Yep. Yeah, that's right.
Along the south property line?
On the south property line.
Yeah.
Would it not be advantageous to not dump it out into a parking lot, but to push it all the way to the green space that separates the True Hilton from the Aldi's and have a walkway there so you are not mixing pedestrian and vehicle traffic?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is something that we considered. That is a pretty steep swale in between there, which would require quite a bit of additional grading. So that's why we chose to work with the existing sidewalk network. One thing that we would do would be painting the True Hotel parking lot similar to other crossings through that, so that there's a clear crossing location for pedestrians so they could get to the sidewalk. But what it's hard to tell there is that space between Aldi's and True is pretty steep. So without significant retaining walls, filling the existing swale and things like that, a lot of rework on the True site. That's why we chose to put it where it is. So we're trying to work with some of the existing infrastructure on site.
Additionally, there is easement issues related
that too.
Just to highlight, there's some underground utilities, both, I think even some above ground utilities, electric infrastructure that would be needing to be worked through if you did focus on that area.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Anything from the other commissioners? All right, hearing none. So I would entertain a motion. Motion by Bradford. Is there a second? Second by Farrell. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
You should be hearing from us on the park.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
You bet. All right, item number 11, site plan review for Stoughton Trailers headquarters at 1800 Greenbrier Drive. I know we have a couple guests online as well. Where would you like to start, Rodney?
Certainly offer the opportunity for the applicant to provide some highlights, but this is an exciting project. Obviously, there's been a lot of conversation about it. Really, your first opportunity as a commission to see the overall site plan and building plans related to the headquarters that's being proposed in the new extension of Greenbrier Drive area. I'm going to try to get something on the screen here in addition so that everyone can take a peek. So just for orientation, the principal entrance, Greenbrier Drive, would be extended from where it is off of 51. It terminates right now at Nygaard Street. That would be extended to the east as part of the Phase 1 STI development plan. Kingsland Road would be also extended from its terminus at the north property line of the plat to Greenbrier Drive, as shown on the plan in the bottom right-hand corner. They have their one main driveway access point off of the Greenbrier Drive connection. And you'll, oh, was I in the wrong screen?
No, it's me.
Oh, sorry.
I'm trying to blow it off, but I can't blow it out of the water.
Okay. You'll recognize there's significant stormwater management facilities in and around the site, but they're capitalizing on, I think, that asset on the eastern side of this. What's not approved as part of this plan is kind of a future vision for even a future boathouse and a connection of a pier potentially to that stormwater management area. What's also not shown in this site plan is they do have provisions or anticipated expansion to the east long term. So they have another building, either an addition onto or potentially a separate building that would be added onto the site for this location. So with that backdrop, I certainly would open it up to, or suggest we open it up to the applicants if they've got other things they'd like to highlight.
Thank you, Rodney. Anything from STI? You might want to just push the red button, or so the red button comes on, and then introduce yourself if you would.
All right, perfect.
Yep.
Good evening, I'm Austin Conrad of Strain Architects. I'm the lead architectural designer in this project. I'm also here this evening with Brian, who is the civil engineer in the project. That was a good summary by staff there, but a few things I'd like to add to that. If you could zoom in a little bit more on where the building is located, that'd be great. So this site is one of those once in a career opportunities. It's a jewel out in this large green space, so it's been a real joy to work on it. One of the key big ideas for this project that the client had is creating a space of wellness for their employees. So what we've done here is we've really taken advantage of all the green around us. So typically in a building you'll have a kind of a core and then like a shell around it. What we've done here instead is we've taken that and we've broken that apart and made these two long linear bars. So very thin floor plates, and that allows us to get light all the way through the building, natural light through the building. The other advantage of that is every occupant in the building has a visual connection to the open space beyond, which really makes this a neat project. Those two bars are connected by an all-glass atrium that you can kind of see in the renderings. Was there a way to bring up the renderings?
Yep, I'll pull that up right now.
How's that?
Is there any way to zoom it out a little bit more?
Yep.
Like I said, it's a very long linear building. So yeah, so there's this glass atrium that connects both of those thin bars, and the intent there is, again, is very narrow. So that when you enter the building, you're instantly connected with the green space beyond. The exterior qualities of this building are all very nice architectural materials. We have mostly brick and then some architectural ribbed metals that are all concealed fastener. There's that middle photo there by the cursor that kind of shows you where the main entry of the building is. So there's a large canopy there, as well as a large canopy in the back of the building to mirror that. There's two tower elements on either side of the building, and those are additional employee entrances, as well as we leverage those to hide all the mechanical equipment, so you can't see any of that from the parking lot. Last thing I'd like to say about the building itself is that we've given a lot of thoughts to this to be a four-sided building, so there really isn't a back per se. The only area we do have outdoor transformers and things on the far right of that rendering, so if you could pan to the right. We have our electrical transformers out there and our trash out there, but they're both screened with matching ribbed metal to the rest of the building. I did have two items to bring up that are modification requests to what has been submitted. Item 1 would be the trash. So in the staff report, item 26 in the staff report says the trash is internal to the building. It actually will be external to the building, but it'll be fully screened. And then the second item is, and I understand this, we're not discussing signage tonight, but just to be aware, in the applicant would like to have 2 monument signs at their entry instead of 1. So with that, I'll hand it back to you for any questions you have. Thank you.
All right. And then if you have sign questions, you want to talk to Michael offline, he'll handle that for you. Are there any initial thoughts or questions from commissioners? Anything from staff that you need clarification on, Rodney?
One of the things that we, obviously this is conditioned upon this certified survey map that we've already acted on getting recorded. Along with that recording of the CSM is a development agreement that we have to enter into prior to recording of the CSM. So there's a number of things in motion here, and we think things are all coming together, but just wanted to highlight that backdrop just to remind folks that those things are still in process. The city is currently reviewing the public improvement plans for the street improvements and the like associated with the Phase 1 development, and that seems to be progressing well as also. Overall, again, I think it's a real exciting project. It really is a cornerstone to the conversation they started when they said they wanted to develop this area, and this really, I think, drives the point home that they're making a commitment to the community, to their employees, and to the environment in that location.
All right. Alderperson Majewski.
Parking spaces, is it determined by square footage at this point or by occupancy?
Employees. Square footage on this, yes, it's different, not an industrial use, correct. Square footage.
So, what's that?
They had to reduce the number a little bit because of square footage.
Okay.
Because we have a maximum allowable,
I understand
and okay, just so the others may understand, we don't allow them to oversupply parking, if you will, or create additional impervious areas that really doesn't meet the threshold. So currently, they had to scale back the number of stalls to meet the building size. In the future phase, there's likely to be more added, of course, as a result of that addition. Yep.
Any follow-up?
I'll hold comment until I see much more detailed plans.
Additional plans, would you like to see other sheets? They're certainly included here. Really, we're acting on the building and site plan as part of the site plan resolution this evening.
I'm curious to see what percentage of these parking lots will be shade covered after approximately about 10, 15 years, so that we are not creating a heat sink. We are trying to be a sustainable community. Because what I'm seeing here is some real minimal amounts of islands and opportunity for shade by comparison to the amount of stalls that we have.
The applicant might be able to speak to the landscaping plan as I'm trying to pull it up.
Sure, good evening to everybody. Brian Carley with MSA. So we do have islands shown in the site plan. We have been revising them slightly to make them consistent with the ordinances. I believe some of the islands right now are in the 375 to 391 square foot range. They need to be 400 square feet. We have made that change already. I believe the site plan meets the ordinance as it states right now. So we do have, or we're trying to maximize the number of landscaping points, units within these islands, and also around the building itself.
I understand that. I personally think that our ordinances for parking lots is woefully out of date and needs revision, and I was kind of hoping that we'd see a little more vision in as far as environmentally for how we are handling the parking lots. Like I said, I'd like to see a 60% shade coverage in the 10-15 year range of maturity of this lot. Never going to happen with what you got there. And it's just a comment on my part.
Sure.
And just so you know, that I will be proposing that ordinance in the upcoming future, that we be moving to a different design for ordinances. You, obviously, you might be getting it under the radar on this one, but just for staff to know that it will be changing, hopefully. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Okay. Anything else you need to add?
There's a resolution in the packet that we'd be proposing to act on.
All right. I would entertain a motion for the resolution. Motion by Farrow, is there a second? Second by Bradford. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. And any opposed? None opposed, that motion carries. Item number 12
Thank
is...
you.
Thank you. Item 12 is a site plan review for building demolitions, new gym, and district administration building entrance additions, including parking expansion for Stoughton Area School District at 235 North Forest Street, also known as the middle school. Dr. Keyser's here, and looks like you might have a guest online. Where would you like to start with this one, Director Shield?
Certainly happy to have them give an introduction as I try to get some of the site plan information up here.
Good evening. My name is Dan Keyser. I'm the district administrator for the Stoughton Area School District. I'm glad to be introducing our representatives who have been a part of this project, Solanders and McLean from Findorf and EUA. The discussion is about our middle school, River Bluff campus, and so I want to thank the community for their support a year ago in the referendum, and so this is the first of some site plans that will be coming through Planning Commission as far as the project. So I'll turn it over to the team to walk us through.
Hello everyone, my name is Andre Rossing. I'm one of the project architects here at Epstein-Ewan. I've also got McLean Tram on the line as well. We've got a submittal here in front of you of the River Bluff site and the district office site. So if you go, I think, back a couple pages from the site lighting one, we have an aerial kind of composite image that I think tells the story nicely. It's,
just 1 second.
Yeah.
Get back to it.
One more. There you go. And if you maybe just zoom in on that area, we've highlighted the 3 buildings that are being removed as a part of this work, and in blue are showing the new drive that's created from that North Street to the south of the site up to River Bluff Middle School to the north there. So what we have in this packet for you today are buildings, what we call number 1 here on the screen. That's the district office. There's a really small portion on the southwest corner that we're adding a 2-story elevator lobby so that we can get a stretcher compliant elevator in there. It's a split level building at that district office. Currently, the elevator doesn't reach the top floor. So that's the main goal in building number 1. And then building number 2 is a new 2-station gym and fitness center for River Bluff. So you can see the Armory building there in the middle of the screen is being removed. That building was built in 1941. It's slightly overlapping the edge of the site, as well as the 2 maintenance buildings, which are going over by the high school. Both of those building removals allow for what you see in blue to take place, where we're adding a new drive for student drop-off and pickup. There's a central parking area that holds 61 parking spots. 40% of those are paved with permeable pavers. And we do have some landscaping plans as well, a couple sheets down.
Just 1 second.
If you head down to what we call sheet PC, 05 and 06 have our calculations of impervious surface to area ratios.
These large these are large images, so they're taking
Sure.
some time here.
They're a little
so
slow.
They're a little slow on my machine.
Understood.
No question.
We flattened them to try to make them as small as possible. It reduced to around 26 megs, so we had to get that over to Michael there. There we've got a gross site of just under 12 acres. We've got 5.9 acres of impervious, which puts us at an impervious ratio of 0.5 and a floor area ratio of 0.25. And then the next sheet has the landscaping details there. We've got a row of trees off to the east there, shading that eastern light, some islands within the space, and the main parking area. The shaded areas of parking are the impervious permeable pavers there. We put them on the low end of the parking grade, so as the water drains across to the east, it'll be picked up and captured. And then we've got a new monument sign to the south there, parallel to the road, as you pull into the drive. So that's coming off of that North Street. There you can see in gray on building 1 is that small lobby addition, right in that corner. And then really the bulk of the work is at the middle school. It's a 2-station gym in that gray box. Then if we jump ahead, if there's no more questions on those, we do have elevations, plans, and some perspectives down on PC 11 and PC 12.
You sure do. They're coming up.
Yep, there you go. So there's PC 12. We've got in the upper left a couple different building elements. It's a red and orange brick veneer to match the existing building. We've got a dark bronze number 2 there. You can see we've got different numbers called out on the perspective. So that brow that wraps the front entry, the canopy, is that dark bronze pack clad standing seam metal panel. And then the storefront, the doors, the entry in will be a clear anodized, kind of a silver aluminum. And there you can see the second floor.
Sorry.
Portion. Nope, you got it.
I'm trying to find the other elevation. What page number was that, 11?
It's all the way at the bottom, 17.
Okay.
Is River Bluff. And those are rather the perspectives. I think this sheet shows the nature of the building a little bit better than elevation. We can go back to the elevations if needed, but at the bottom there, you've got a similar 2 tones of brick. We've got a dark iron spot brick, which has a little bit of texture to it. And then a more buff beige brick. You can see in the bottom left there, those 2 brick options represented as items 1 and 2 up above on the screen. So in the upper right corner is the back side or the west side of the building, whereas the upper left image D1 is along that drive that we were just looking at. So that'll be the new main entrance to River Bluff Middle School. And similar metal panels, we have a dark red, a colonial red, clear anodized storefront system. We've a black aluminum and a cast stone base. That's not number 6. So with that, that's the bulk of what we have. We're certainly open to any comments or questions from the team. We hope that this shows the project intent moving forward, and likewise, we're just excited to bring this project to the community of Stoughton, along with Dan and the team here.
All right, thank you. Anything you want to add, Dr. Keyser?
I just want to say that this has been a lot of planning up to this point, and so some of these have been just starting to get shared out as we get to this planning point, and so I look forward to, if the commission approves this, bringing this to future community presentations like down at the senior center and other events. So, but we're here and happy to answer any questions and happy to see some familiar faces.
All right. Are there any questions from commissioners? Okay. Alder Schumacher, former
right.
school board member Schumacher.
For sure. You didn't want any of that purple brick from the high school?
That was before his time.
That was before my time. Although when we were talking about the red, we all went out and like looked and said, "Oh yeah, there is a lot of red." So tying into the color scheme, and then the dark will have some iron flecks in it, so it'll give some of that red hue as the sun moves across the sky.
Yeah, it looked like glass, but it was purple in the high school.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was
they'll have to-
different.
It was different. I was
So-
excited when that got remodeled.
Thankfully. Although I don't know if that EIFS was better though. Anyway, that material bad to work with. So 2 questions I have. Can you illustrate what the sequence of events would be on here? I mean, we've got construction, reconstruction, and demolition. How that would fit in the timeline of the project?
Certainly. So in general, and then I'll look to the team for the specifics, is over our spring break, which will be in March, we'll be sequencing decommissioning of the armory or the community gym. So there will be fencing placed around that. That will not impact traffic flow for pickup and drop off of our students, either with buses or by vehicle. The day after our last day of school, there will be fencing and construction of the gym addition will commence. At that point, we'll have for next school year and the school year and the summer after impacts to our pickup and drop off. At the end of the project, which will be the opening of the 25-26 school year, if I've got my school years correct, we will actually have a separate bus drop off on the back side. So between the 1892 building and the new gym addition will be where the buses are dropped off, and then the new Circle Drive coming off 3rd will be where all of our commuter traffic, so bikes and cars being dropped off. You have the actual timelines, McLean and Anders?
We do, yeah. I have it on my screen here, so I'm able to share it. But it's essentially, you got it down that it would be January of 2024 we would be breaking ground and finalizing in August of 25. Let me pull this up.
I have been paying attention in our core team meetings.
Very well, yeah.
And because of that and the use of our community gym while that's coming up, we did meet with the chamber and Norwegian dancers and members who run the arts and crafts fair to give them forewarning. We did promise that. And then our activities and athletic director is working on updating all of our facility use, so any dates that are impacted will now be communicated out. So we're already in the process in preparation of these timelines to minimize the impact for planning purposes. Yes, so up on our dates or up on the screen we have our dates.
Yeah, so to orient everyone where we are in the timeline here, October 2023, we're looking to start construction around January to March of 2024 and complete by around August, September of 2025. So here I've highlighted the line for River Bluff and District Office. It's the same timeline. These other buildings are more interior scope, and then we do have, for the next Plan Commission, planned to present the Yahara gym and maintenance site. So District Office is what we're calling AESC building, and then the River Bluff addition. These are probably small on your screen here, so blow it up. We've got state review in the dark purple and construction in the light purple. We are back here in this timeline.
All right, then my second question is with the AESC, is that the level entrance, the handicap accessible entrance that comes in from the back side, that's going away in favor of using the elevator from the front side, is that true? The drawing looks like that.
Yes, I don't believe it's going to take away the entrance to the middle level, but there will be now, instead of the lift that just goes between the lower level and the mid level, there will be an actual elevator that goes across to all three.
Yep, that's correct. And when you say the backside, I believe you mean this vestibule to the northwest corner. That will be remaining through construction. We'll be pulling this portion here with the elevator offline as we remove the existing. It's currently like a single level lift, and it's about 800 square feet. So we are slightly enlarging the footprint to allow for the stretcher compliant elevator. So we're aligning with that west wall. And then this is that current reception area, so that function remains.
All right, that's what I was trying to visualize on the plan, because I know that entrance fairly well.
Yes.
That was all I had.
For the commissioners, I was just going to highlight one of the resolution items. One of the conditions or acknowledgements is the wider entrance point off of 5th Street. They actually have one lane in, 2 lanes out, if you will. Actually, I'll put it back up on my screen so you can see it. Has it come up on anyone's screen yet? Mayor, I don't know if you need to pull your screen up or.
I certainly can.
That's interesting. I can try sharing it again.
Approximately what page?
Page 15 is the one I'm using.
Say one.
You're getting close.
Is this it?
Yeah, the next one. And then you could zoom out a little.
Maybe.
Down just a little bit.
Just a down, yeah, if you just go down a little bit, you can see how that.
Right there.
That's the entrance point. So the way they have it designed, we've got one drive lane in, you've got a drive lane out that allows for dedicated right turn, and one for a straight and left turn. Left turn would be a pretty unusual movement there because it's a dead end, but it does acknowledge that the site plan resolution authorizes and the Plan Commission can approve the wider opening as depicted.
Rodney, is that opening in line with 5th Street, or is it offset the way that it is currently?
I believe the in-line, the in lane is in alignment with the northbound lane on 5th Street. That's how I saw it. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. It's been offset, so that's in alignment. I apologize for calling it 3rd Street instead of 5th Street. Still learning.
As I know currently for dropping off at the middle school, we might, if all the traffic gets routed off of Fifth Street here, we may want to consider at Fifth and Main, because I've seen a tremendous number of close calls there, both in vehicle and pedestrian.
Yeah.
Because there's that blind corner coming up the hill, so.
Not involving you, I hope.
No.
Any questions or comments from any other commissioners? Commissioner Farrell?
Just one thing is, I would note, a little bit minor, but perhaps maybe not when they're talking about a school facility. On the landscape plan on the southeast corner of the gym addition, there's a 6-foot landscape strip, and at the bottom of that on the southeast corner, there's some shrubs. They appear to be very close to a exit, I would assume, some doors there. And previous career, I studied CPTED, crime prevention through environmental design, and that is something you wouldn't want to see. It gives a place for a bad guy to hang out, potentially, not noticeable.
Right.
So you may want to push some of those shrubs back away from those doors, if I'm reading that right.
Thank you for that noticing. Let's see, we're trying to look.
If you pull up the landscape plan, the south, I believe it's southeast if it's oriented, right? Are you there? Okay, you gotta go up a little
Page 6,
bit.
yeah. It's one below this one.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, yeah, zoom in on that bottom right as you're looking at it. You'll see some shrubs that are come right up next to the door. And that's something, again, from a CPTED standpoint, you wouldn't want to see.
Yeah, so for those ones, the height of those will get to 24 inches. They're on the next sheet. We've got a schedule. Those are the black chokeberries.
I did see
max height
that.
of 24.
I did note that, yeah. And that's enough for somebody to crouch behind.
Okay. Yeah, I think it would be certainly easy to pull some of the plants away from that and locate them towards either one of the islands. We were looking to meet the points required by your ordinance.
Sure.
And I think we could just barely meet it with what we had shown. So if there's like a distance, I think we could keep that just a mulched planting bed, with no plantings for, say, the first 8 feet or so.
I don't think it's necessary.
Pretty easily.
I don't think it's necessary. I think that's 24, I work for Milwaukee County Parks, where I totally understand what you're talking about. 24 inches is not going to be a concern. Period. I don't see the need to mulch the bed and have scorched earth. I'm sorry. I can't not say something.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I just want to clarify. Were you saying to remove them, or were you saying just to move them away from the door?
I was saying to push them away from the door. It's a concept called crime prevention through environmental design, and one of the principles of that is you want any doors to be devoid of shrubbery that a bad guy could potentially conceal himself until the last minute and launch his attack on whatever he's wanting to do. So.
One thing on those doors, if we may, is they are intended to be egress-only doors out of the gym, so they wouldn't have hardware on the outside to get in. It's really to allow for your occupancy load in that gym to egress in the case of an emergency event. But really, the primary doors are up to the north there. So if that's something to consider as well.
Oh, sure. But having worked in the Navy with a secret clearance, all you got to do is go up to somebody as they exit and go, "Can you hold the door for me?" And 9 times out of 10, they're going to hold the door open for you, and you can walk right in. And I've seen that in skiff facilities even. So.
Thank you for that.
Plain trim with EUA as well. I just wanted to chime in and thank you for the comment. What we will do is be able to bring that comment back to the school core team and allow them to consider that and see if that they want to do anything. But what I'm hearing is a suggestion, correct, rather than a requirement being requested. Just want to clarify.
Absolutely, absolutely, just a suggestion.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments, or suggestions?
Got one last
Okay.
that I thought of. With the way you're orienting the new gym addition onto there, I know that that's going to take care of the swampland that was usually in the front of the building. And that's going to be regraded on the other side because I know that that has some drainage issues too. Is that true?
One of you want to take scope on that because I'm not a landscape architect.
That would be to the right of where the main entrance is currently.
Yeah, that would be correct. We have our landscape grading plan 2 sheets above this on PCO4. And the high point of the site is that west drive. And it grades down to the east there. So a large portion of the parking areas within a curb system to capture that. And we do have those 2 areas of permeable pavers on the lower side of the grade.
You know, I think there are 2 drain basins that are at the front of the building there. Are those, obviously the one under the building is going to go away, but are you going to work with the current drain basin in the area that I've been talking about, or landscape such that that will be eliminated?
Yeah, we'll be working with the current basin. You see it there highlighting there, the ST, or the 2 storm drains.
Okay.
So that's capturing the bulk of that water from the permeable area, and the goal of the permeable pavers is to capture the bulk of the water that's running within that parking zone, the 61 spots, because that's all draining to the right side of the screen here. Yep.
All right. I mean, I think there's an existing one further up than where you're indicating, but I didn't know if that was going to be tied into it. It's like literally about 10 feet from the face of the building. It's a very small grate. I know I've tripped on it a few times.
We'll have to look at that one with our civil designer. I see the storm line running through the site, kind of going up and to the right. And I saw one more storm inlet on that previous sheet that was out in the field. But it sounds like what you're describing is closer to the building. So I see a portion underground there. It's like, well, no, that's our water line getting tied in.
All right, that was sufficient. Just there, I know that the lines that were up there were notorious for not doing the job they were intended to do.
All right. Any final thoughts or questions? Okay, so on this one, we're also looking for a motion. There's a resolution in the packet with some conditions or suggestions, or what would you call them?
They just they acknowledge a staff review letter, and contained in our staff review letter is, I know that they're still continuing to work with Stoughton Utilities to make sure any utility comments are addressed. And then in addition to that was the right-of-way width or the driveway width that we spoke of earlier. That's contained in the resolution as well.
All right.
Acceptance of that.
I have a motion by Bradford. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Schumacher. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. That motion carries. Future agenda items?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any future agenda items?
I got the final plat for Lot 6 51 West, preliminary condo plans coming for Stoughton Hospital. That'll be in December. A solar array at United Methodist Church and the Harris School. That project will be coming next month.
All right. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Also move.
Caravello, is there a second? Second by Bradford. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Have a good night. Thank you.